And today we are going to talk all about shooting with Instagram and how to implement Instagram into your photography to, one, become a better photographer. We're going to talk about some tips you can use to help you check the conditions in locations where you're going to shoot, find new photography locations, and make connections with other photographers that you can go shoot with. Then we're going to talk about how to build a following on Instagram. It's not very fun if all you're doing is posting and nobody ever comments back on your stuff. And then we're going to talk about how to make your photos stand out and be interesting. That was terrible. All right. All right. But first, I want to just meet you a little bit, Josh. Josh Packer is a photographer in eastern Idaho on the other side of the state from me. He's a CPA by day, but a really great photographer and has built a nice following on Instagram and met up with a lot of people and had a lot of opportunities because of Instagram. So Josh, tell us a little bit about the gear you use and what it is that you like to shoot.
Well, I love to shoot landscape photos, and there's nothing wrong with portrait, but man, mountains don't talk back to you like portrait shoots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People complaining and things like that. So I love to do nature photography. And what I use is the Nikon D750. And I shoot with the Tokina 17 to 35 millimeter and the Tamron 70 to 200 for the most part. That's where most of my photos come from. But I originally shot with the Nikon D3200, and a lot of those photos are on my Instagram account. So I kind of have a mix between the two, but right now all I have is the Nikon D750.
Cool. And why did you choose the Nikon D750? Why did you pick the Nikon system in general?
Well, I started out with the Nikon D3200, so that my wife bought that for me after I graduated from my master's program, and so I'm just used to the Nikon system, and I've kind of stuck with that. And I've heard good things about the Nikon D750, and it was a lot cheaper than the 810. So yeah, I'm kind of a cheapskate. I'm a CPA, so I'm a little bit of a cheapskate.
Yeah, that's I can absolutely I'm with you there. That was one of the nice things when I switched to Fuji. You know, I really switched to Fuji because of the size. I was tired of, hiking around with giant Nikon D810s and stuff like that. But boy, it's a really nice it's a really nice side benefit to have the less expensive gear, so you can get more lenses, more other stuff when your camera, doesn't cost you $6,000 like a 1DX or something like that.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. Well, I'll show, if you're watching the video version of this, I'll show a bunch of your photos as we're going through this to kind of illustrate. If you're not on watching the video, then bring out your phone and check out Instagram. Josh Packer is at Packtography, like PACK. TOGRAPHY. So be sure to check that out as we're talking. All right, so let's talk about how we can actually use Instagram to become a better photographer. The way that I've used it really more than anything else is twofold. One is to find photography locations. I'll search, like last week I was in Arizona shooting, and so I would search on Instagram just the Sedona hashtag with the area of Arizona where I was, and see what it is that people are posting. Now, there are benefits and drawbacks to doing it that way. The problem that I found with doing that is that it ends up being mostly people on vacation in Sedona who are just, posting random snaps and stuff. And so it wasn't as helpful as maybe I was hoping, but at least helped me to get acquainted with the area. How have you used it to find locations, Josh?
Sorry, what was that?
How have you used Instagram to find locations?
Sorry, I had a little problem with my internet connection there for a second. So, well, I live pretty close to Grand Teton National Park, so I use that a lot just to kind of see what the conditions are as well. But also for finding locations, I don't know if you've ever been to Mesa Falls, but I kind of been looking at Upper Mesa Falls, and then I saw some photos where somebody had taken some photos down below by Fall River. And I was really curious. I'm like, well, I want to go find that one day. So me and my buddy Chad Fish, we went over there. And we kind of looked around, and we eventually found some kids just hiking down to the bottom. So we followed them and found that spot. And so there's a photo on my website of Upper Mesa Falls just from below the falls. And that's how I found it, is that way. I never would have seen it otherwise. So looking at hashtag photos with Mesa Falls, I was able to kind of find some different perspectives, and I was able to find that shot.
Yeah, that is something that I've used as well. It's just sometimes I'll go shoot an area, and I had no idea that a particular perspective was even a possibility. And then you see something like that, and it just encourages you go there. Yeah, and I've done that same thing. I've gone to Mesa Falls and shot up at the top, and I've seen photos from the bottom, but I just couldn't figure out how to get down there.
Well, it's kind of a trek to get down there, and the rangers don't like you just hiking down there without telling them. So if you ever do want to do it, make sure they know, because if you get stuck down there and get hurt, then they're going to get in trouble. And we had done an Instameet there, and we took like 20 people down and kind of got in trouble. So lesson learned, I've got to talk to the rangers before I do something like that. But it's kind of a treacherous walk down. There's definitely not really a trail to get down to it, but yeah, if you ever want to know, I'll let you know.
Well, checking the conditions in an area is really helpful. Sometimes even when I'm booking trips to go somewhere, I'll check people's photos of the area and see when they were posted. Look at the top pictures from the area, and I'll say, this was all like the first week of October last year is when the good fall color was, and then you can, of course, plan your trip around that. But also, I'm wanting to go to Stanley, Idaho right now to go do a shoot, and so I'm checking to see when the first snowfall is going to be, and it's very, very helpful to be able to do that without driving 3 hours, and then you see the conditions just aren't what you want, or there are always wildfires in Idaho, always. And so exactly. It makes a very unique sunset when you have a wildfire. So you can see what other people are posting, and then decide where you want to go. Are you using that a lot?
I do, especially with Grand Teton National Park. That's a couple hours away from me. Oxbow Bend and Snake River Overlook and a few places like that. You go and look at the hashtag photos, and you can see, the fall colors are peaking or whatever it might be. And there are a few different ways of doing it, but I love to use Instagram for that reason, because there's always somebody posting some photos of Oxbow Bend, and they hashtag that, and usually I can know like the day of really what the conditions are like. So I found that very helpful to do it that way.
Very cool. So I know you have used Instagram for networking, meeting other people to go out and shoot with and stuff. I haven't ever done that. So how are you using Instagram to, find photo buddies and get a community of people to shoot with? Because I think it's a lot more fun to go shoot with people.
It's so much more fun.
Especially like if I'm going in a really remote area where I have to like hike in, it's a little iffy to go by yourself. It's, nice to have people to go with. So how's that worked for you, and how have you done that?
That's a very good question. There are a few different ways of doing it. So I've just kind of made friends. I've gone around Instagram and kind of looked up my friends and their friends and kind of made that connection with people and said, oh, yeah, I love your photos. And then I become friends with them. And now I've got multiple spots across the country or even in Canada that if I wanted to, I could go over there and possibly even stay the night at somebody's house, or I could go shooting with them. So I have a couple of friends over in Canada that I'm hoping to go to Banff and a few places like that next year, and I've become good friends with them. And it's all just been about looking for friends via hashtag photos, or just looking through your current friends and who they're following. And I've gotten some people that have also really inspired me, just a couple of them that have really helped me improve my photography as well. So there's a professional photographer by the name of Mark Handy Photography that barely got on Instagram, and I kind of got to know him, and he's really helped me learn different things. And I went shooting with him last year over in Grand Teton National Park, and he came out here, and it's kind of nice because if you live pretty close to a couple of these big parks or something like that, you'll get some people that want to come shooting with you. I've had several people say, hey, coming over to Grand Teton National Park here soon. Do you want to go shooting with me? I've had that happen countless times so far. So it's just a really great way to meet new people. And I've done some Insta meets where I'll post on my own personal account, like, hey, I'm going to Grand Teton National Park. Anybody want to come with me? And I've done that a couple of times, and I've met up with a bunch of different people. So it just kind of depends how you want to go about it, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it.
So
but it's been great.
Have you, I don't know how big these groups are. Have you had trouble with park rangers coming up to you when you have a group of people? Because we get that all the time, every time I say, I'm going to go shoot somewhere and there are 20 of us together. Every time it attracts park rangers.
Yeah, normally I don't have like 20 people, more it's around 10. So maybe I'm flying underneath the radar for that. But
okay, stop growing on Instagram then, because it gets not fun at that point.
No, it isn't. So are they upset that they think you're trying to make some money or something like that, and they don't want you in the park if you're doing that? Like you're having a photo shoot and... Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not even that. Even when we're doing our free meetups, we have to get licenses, get permits from the parks when we go. And we've been stopped a number of times by park rangers, and they'll give you the rundown. They'll give you the business, and make sure you got your permit. And it's a thing. This last time in. I guess the most recent one was when we were in Glacier, and one of the rangers just stopped, and he was nice, but, he asked several questions. He wanted to know what, and I said, we applied for a permit, and they said we didn't need one. We were 25 people, and it was, not a paid thing. Nobody was making a profit off of the event, and the guy was real interested. I'm pretty positive, because he asked my full name and stuff and everything. He wanted to look it up afterward. They're very picky about that. But I find that they're a lot more reasonable when the park isn't under heavy pressure. When it's, peak season and you park 20 cars, just kind of loading up one area of the park, it's more of a problem. When, you're carpooling and it's, you're at night and stuff, when there's not a lot of pressure, they tend to be a lot more lax.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so too. And in Grand Teton National Park, some of the spots are kind of outside the park, so I think that kind of helps as well. Even though they're technically part of the park, like Mormon Row and Schwabacker Landing and Snake River Overlook, those places are technically a part of the park, but I never see any rangers there. So I think that's helped.
Yeah, that is nice. Tuca Alvarez on Facebook Live is saying that she's in Canada and has never had any trouble with park rangers at all. So maybe when you go up to Canada, you'll know you won't have any problems with that.
That's nice. Nice to know. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, okay, so we've talked a little bit about, how to use Instagram to help you to be a better photographer. Networking to help you find other photographers you can shoot with, finding locations, and then checking the conditions of the area. Now let's talk a little bit about making Instagram a little bit more fun, because when you get there and it's just a ghost town and you have nobody to shoot or nobody's commenting on your stuff, it's just not that fun to participate with. And this is something that I've got to remember, because, I've been working on improved photography for 7 years. And so when I start on a new social network, I can just say, hey, I'm on this social network, and I instantly have a following, which is great. But most people don't have that. You're working a different job and stuff. Mm-hmm. You can't spend like your whole life getting followers. So I think you're a perfect example of this, because you're a CPA. Photography is not a money-making thing for you. It's just what you love to do. And so I want to talk with you a little bit about how you've been able to do that, how much time it takes to do something like this, and what strategies have actually worked, because you have a great following on Instagram. So what's actually worked for you to build a following and get feedback on your photos?
Very good question. So I started Instagram a few years ago, and I kind of just dedicated a personal account. Well, I had a personal account, and then I kind of switched that over to a photography account and solely posted just landscape photos. And I do have a few photos of my family and things like that on there, but for the most part...
I'm sorry, you said a personal account and then a photography account. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, so when I first started Instagram, I just started Instagram because it was kind of like Facebook, right?
Oh, you mean you
so
were just sharing as just, photos of your backyard and stuff? Not that it was a different type of account,
nothing.
just what you were sharing. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like a different account. Yeah, it was pretty much the same thing, but I just created a new account. And that's where pactography came from. And so let me think about that.
So
I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
It's okay. So what does work to get that following? I mean, are you just using hashtags and people come, or what's working?
So Instagram has changed a lot. I don't know if you remember, but probably about a year or so ago, it was about your last post. So the last post would be the one that would show up in your feed. And now they've changed it. They've got an algorithm out there, and it kind of does it more like Facebook, where it's not the most recent photo that shows up. It's just whatever they want to push.
Oh, that drives me nuts,
and
by the way.
hate it. So for a time, I started to get a couple thousand likes on each of my photos, and I was doing pretty well. And then all of a sudden, that algorithm came and just kind of ruined everything. And I hated it. I was just so mad. But eventually, I started getting some photos out there that people were liking. I don't know if Instagram likes me right now or what they're doing, but I'm getting a lot more new followers just when I post a photo. I don't even have to do too much. I do all my hashtags. I think that helps, but I think Instagram really just finds certain accounts that they want to push, and they start pushing them. And I think that's what's happened over the last month and a half. So I went from about 18,000 followers about a month and a half ago to about 28,000. So it took me a couple of years to kind of get where I was, and then within the last month and a half, I've pretty much done a third of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of hard, and I think what you've got to do is just post good quality content. You've got to be really interactive with your followers. Whenever I post a photo, I try to ask a good question, or I try to get people involved instead of just saying, "Hey, look at my cool photo." And when I would just post something like a title or something like that, I never got much interest or much feedback. But if I started posting questions at the top of my caption, it seems like I get a lot more interaction.
So what kind of questions are you posting?
What was that?
What kind of questions?
Oh, that's a good question. Why don't I just pull up a few here that I've done? So I'm working on a calendar right now, a landscape calendar. I'd done that last year. So on my last post, I just said, should I add this photo to my calendar? And I put a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And then I get all sorts of people just commenting saying, yeah, you should add that to your calendar. No, you shouldn't add it to your calendar. And what else have I done?
Oh, Cubs or Indians.
Oh, yeah, Cubs or Indians. So I just said, hey, because I knew that was going on and I knew people were watching the game, because that was probably the most watched World Series game in a long, long time.
Yeah, I think 4 people watched baseball that week. That was great. Sorry, I'm not much of a baseball fan.
I'm not much of a baseball fan either, but man, the World Series, Cubs haven't won in over 100 years. I don't know. I found that interesting. I think it may have been more like 7 or 8 people. But.
Yeah, I was in a church meeting while the final game was going on, and a couple people kept reading out the score during the meeting, and I said, do you guys really watch baseball normally? And everybody's like, oh no, I haven't seen a baseball game in years. But they were into it.
But I think things like that, I really get people interacting with you more. So on Halloween, I posted who's afraid of old buildings, and then I posted a photo of an old building over in Swan Valley and kind of a spooky shot. And I think things like that really help Instagram want to push you, because when that algorithm happened, I was dropped down to about 1,000 likes, and it just sucked because I wasn't getting new followers or anything. But once I kind of got that momentum going, I think it really helped, and it's just kept going. And so I try to post every day because I'm afraid Instagram's just not going to like me here soon. So
tell me about starting your own hub using the Idaho Daily. So you're using the @Idaho Daily account. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So back in the day, there were a few Idaho accounts that would feature photos, and they were great. But I kind of wanted to start my own accounts because I just wanted to share my own photos whenever I wanted to, and kind of get more of more people looking at them. And so a couple of years ago, I asked some of my friends that lived in Idaho if they'd want to start an account with me. So what we did is we actually have about 7 people right now that share their photos every day. And it's a little bit different than some of the other Idaho accounts, which are great out there. But what we try to do is we each share our own photos that we've taken in Idaho, and then we also feature photos of our followers.
So multiple people have the login to this account?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just share the username and password with a few people.
And I've got the final thing on that, so somebody can't come in and start changing things. It's going to go back to my email eventually that they're not going to have access to. But yeah, we all share the username and password. And so one day a week, each person has a responsibility to post a photo and share one of their own photos. And I think it's important to do that because what I wanted too is I wanted to share the awesome photos that there are in Idaho, and felt like some of the other accounts were just sharing photos, and I wanted them to be really good photos that were coming out. So that's what I've done, and I feel like we've gotten a lot of interest from people. And the other thing I thought about too is sometimes accounts disappear for a long time, and I've noticed that too, and I didn't want that. So we call Idaho Daily for a reason. We share photos every single day, and I think that's made a big difference.
Okay. So what about using hashtags? I've gone back and forth on hashtags. I guess it's tough to get any real data on this because you have enough followers that it's hard to tell who came from a hashtag and who came because they're just a follower of you, somebody who knows you, etc. But I haven't seen any meaningful difference on a post where I use hashtags versus don't use hashtags. What have you seen and what works for you?
So hashtags have changed as well. And now that you've got like the top 9, if you go and look on Instagram, you have the top 9 photos in that hashtag, which I think actually helps. So if you can get a good amount of likes on your photos, then if anybody ever searches that hashtag, they're going to see your photo in the top 9. So I think that helps for sure.
And is the top 9 decided strictly from likes? Is it is it a perfect algorithm, or they're playing with it?
They're playing with it because
I hate that.
I'll have more likes than some of the posts on there, but they're on there for some reason. So I don't know what it is, whether it be comments or kind of how they push it, but likes definitely help for sure. And then you've got hubs that will feature photos. So you've got like some of the big ones are U.S. Interior, and I don't know if you've seen them, but they've got over 1 million followers, and then they share photos of all the national parks. So I have
like the Department of the Interior?
U.S. Department of the Interior. Yeah, so I wanted them to feature my photos, and I never kind of heard from them for a while, but at some point they just commented on one of my photos saying, hey, we'd love to share one of your photos. And so I've kind of made that connection with them, and I actually will send them photos from time to time, and they'll feature my photos, and these photos get 40 to 50,000 likes, and I'll get all sorts of followers when that happens. And so that's one way. And then you have all sorts of hubs out there. You've got like Master Shots, you've got Inspiring Photography Admired, and all these different accounts that you just go in and you find what their hashtag is, and then you go in and put that on your photo. And then when they're going through trying to pick some photos to feature, they'll look at that and say, hey, I want to feature that photo, and they do that, and that can give you a good amount of followers. And I would say right now that it hasn't helped me a whole lot. I don't get my photos featured all that much anymore. I do somewhat, but since that algorithm changed, I feel like I don't get featured nearly as much. But there are a few different ways, and I think that is definitely one good way if you're just starting out too, to tag those photos with those hashtags. And you can actually tag people in the photos too. And I do that occasionally, where I would just go in, I would tag U.S. Interior, or Grand Teton NPS, or whatever it is, so that they get notified that somebody just shared a photo of their park. And have you done that before, or do you know much about that? Because when you look at your photos of you,
Uh-huh.
that will show you just photos that people have tagged of you or photos that you've done of yourself that you tagged.
Yeah,
So
they're almost never of me though. I think people just use the just at tag improve photography all the time, because all the time when I look at the photos of me, they're not photos of me.
and that's how it is for me right now too. Something else I've kind of changed too is I've made a lot of friends here on Instagram, and to kind of keep tabs on each other, since you can't see the most recent photo from everyone anymore. I kind of miss photos sometimes of my friends, but a lot of my friends will tag me in their own photos, and then when I go through those photos, I can quickly go and say, "Hey, split second snapshot took a photo," and so I can go comment on it. I think that's helped each other kind of just keep track of what's going on, and they make comments, and that helps boost your own content as well.
Very cool. Okay, so so talk about interacting with followers. This is one that I've found to be huge on every social network. I think when people want to grow a following, there's too much of a focus on themselves. You know, it's all about follow me and I'm awesome and look at me doing all these different things. And that's not really a pull for people. Surprisingly, you're more interested in yourself than anybody else is. And I don't mean you specifically. I mean, when you're working on social, you have to give people a reason to follow you. And so
Exactly.
on improvephotography.com and Facebook, I can't keep up with every comment, but there's a large majority of comments made that I'll try to reply to and like their comment, or just interacting with people so that they are interested in you and interacting with you. So what do you do in terms of interaction? What's worked for you?
And I completely agree with you, Jim. I think it's one of the most important things that you can do. And if you had the most amazing photos, you might be able to get by without replying back to comments. But I've seen most people, most of the big accounts, they always reply back to comments. So if anybody ever makes a comment on my photo, I either say, "Oh, thank you," or I go and talk to them and say, "Oh, it's great." Or if they say something that's not even about the photo, I'll even talk to them and kind of get that interaction going. And by doing that, I think that really gets them wanting to come back and talk to you, and you develop friendships that way. And I have a number of friends that I've gone shooting with, and I hope to go shooting with by doing that. And there's one specific person that I'd done a presentation on this before, but she left a comment, and this is what she said: "I think it's great that you try to respond to every comment on here. It seems like you don't take the constructive criticism harshly, and da 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 da. Thanks for being awesome, da 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 da." And so you know that people are watching, right? So that person commented saying, "Hey, I've noticed that you do try to respond to everyone." And by doing that, people come back and people want to talk to you, and you make new friends that way. I don't do it just because I do it because I want to network. I want to meet new people, and I think it's a great way to do that.
Yeah, and I really like that you can now do that from the web. You still have to post your photos from your phone, although I really do believe that's going to change eventually, and I don't think that's a good thing. In contrast to most people, I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's just going to bring tons of spam onto Instagram. So I'm glad that you still have to post from the phone, but I do like that you can do your commenting from Instagram on the web. So I can just go to instagram.com/improvephotography, my account, and I can click on the photos, and I can, reply to people and do all the commenting there, which is much faster than trying to thumb this thing.
Exactly. Well, I probably should move over to that. I still just do it all from my phone. I guess I'm just a little bit too lazy, but I quickly respond. But I think that's a great way to do it as well, because you can type a lot faster. But I've become pretty good at just quickly typing on my phone.
Yeah, and another thing that has worked for me the only thing that has worked for me on Instagram to get a following is to link from your other networks. So yesterday I wrote an article on improvephotography.com that was really popular, got hundreds of comments on it, called "Dear Photographer Who My Assistant Wants to Slap." It was just kind of a funny article in response to interesting photographer who'd sent me an email.
I read that. Yeah, I saw that. So.
And at the end, I just made a little PS that said, follow me on Instagram. And that brought hundreds of people over to my Instagram by doing that. And so if you're just starting, where do you have a following? Even if it's just your personal friends on Facebook, whatever it is, or, your photography website, who maybe you get 20 people a day going to it. May not be huge, but just link to your Instagram from lots of other places, especially now that Instagram on the web is more of a thing. It used to be, you're going to have to get out your phone, type in Improve Photography, find my name, and click follow. And now you can just link to your Instagram account, and people can just click from the web to follow Improve Photography. So linking from everywhere else that you do have, even if it's just your personal friend network, it just feels like you have to put a little ammo in the gun first. Before Instagram is really going to show off your photos, you've got to give them something to help them to believe that your photos are worth looking at. So with every type of social media, I found that the best way to get a following from the beginning is you have to just push the network that you already have. Go to the photo club and the local camera club and walk around to everybody before the meeting. Talk to them and say, "Hey, are you on Instagram? I'll follow you." And what are they going to do when you follow them? They're going to follow you back, right? So just do whatever you can to scrape and scrap and get that first, the acceptable minimum of followers, and then you'll be getting enough likes and juice from that it can start to grow organically. Anything you'd add to that for the very beginner?
No, I think that's great to do it that way. And I remember when I just what did I do? I pushed it from Facebook to Instagram, and I got all sorts of new followers. Or even on my Facebook account, I posted and said, "Hey, I'm on Instagram, go check me out." And I did that after a while. It wasn't like I did it when I had like 5 photos out there. I had been on Instagram for a while, had a good following, and people go over there and check it out and go, "Oh yeah, I do want to follow him." So I agree with you that you need to have some good material for them to see before you actually push them that way. Don't have one photo and say, "Hey, come follow me." They'd be like, "No, I'm not going to follow you. No way." But yeah, doing anything like that is going to help you.
For sure. All right, so we've talked about 2 different topics. We've talked about, how to actually use Instagram to make you a better photographer and how to build your following on Instagram. Last thing that I want to ask you about is how to make your photos stand out on Instagram. What type of photo tends to do well on Instagram to get likes, to get follows and shares? What are you doing to your photos to help them be more appealing on Instagram?
That's a great question. And since I've been on Instagram for a while, it was square crop all the way, right? You couldn't do anything else back in the day. And now they've given you a few more options. You can do landscape shots. You can do portrait orientation shots. And by far, the portrait orientation shots are the best ones out there, because when you're looking at your phone, it's going to be nice and big. You post a picture of a mountain up close or a dock or something like that, you can get some really cool photos that really pop. If you post a nice landscape shot, it's great. And I'm hoping that Instagram changes this someday where you can flip your phone and actually look at it that way. But until then, if you want your photos to pop, you just got to use portrait orientation. It's the best thing out there. And I feel like some of the hubs out there, when this first happened where they let you do the portrait orientation, they didn't really care for it much, but more and more hubs are loving the portrait orientation. So I think it's the best way to get your photos to pop.
Yeah, and I think the reason it's better is it just makes your photo bigger on the phone. Nobody's going to turn their phone sideways to see your photo the best way. Everybody's looking at your phone vertically, and the next post is just a short scroll away. And so if by making your photo tall, it's just bigger on there. So Kathy Coleman is asking on Facebook Live. She said, if you have a good sized following on Instagram, it will ask you if you want to become a business account, and it'll tell you all the advantages of being a business account. And I have definitely seen this. I fell victim to this problem last week. So they always ask, is this a business account? Whatever, because eventually they're going to make you pay for it. And I have always said, no, I'm not going to answer that question. because I know why they're doing that. And then last week, it popped up this thing that just said, update your profile. And I updated my profile. It never even asked me about business anything. It just said, update your profile. And after I had finished updating my profile, it says, voila, you're a business account. I thought, no!
And then, so you have the little contact symbol up on your profile?
Well, the real problem is once they know you're a business account, they're going to start just cutting the reach of your post dramatically. This is what happened on the Improved Photography Facebook page. We have almost 700,000 followers on the Improved Photography Facebook page, and yet our posts rarely reach over 100,000 of those people. Only our most viral posts are going to get there. And it's because Facebook has said before that their goal is that any type of business page will only have a 1% reach. That you work to bring 100 followers to your page, and then they're only going to eventually be showing it to 1%. They've stated that's their end goal. And it's only got steadily worse over time. And Instagram is owned by Facebook. So I guess a lot of people are wondering, and we're getting some questions on Facebook Live about this, is Instagram even worth pursuing? Or is it just going to become like the Facebook page that is not worthless from a commercial standpoint, but boy, it's close to worthless from a standpoint. What do you think?
That is a super good question, because I was kind of worried that was going to happen, and it is kind of moving that way. And I'm on here now, and there are a couple of reasons to be on Instagram. I think one of them is to show your work and try to get new people looking at your work, but a big part of it is networking. And I've loved the people I've met on Instagram and Facebook. I don't really have that. You don't really see hashtag photos and meet new people as much as you do on Instagram. So for that reason, I say it's worth it. If you love landscape photography or nature photography and you want to meet new people, that's the place to go. I agree that it's changing more into Facebook, and I'm hoping that it doesn't just turn into Facebook like that. But if for anything, I just love it for networking, meeting new people, and getting exposure. That's a hard question. I can't tell you what the future holds for Instagram. I can't, but I hope that it doesn't go down that road.
Yeah, what I might say about that is, when I started Improved Photography 7 years ago, Twitter was the thing. That's all anybody cared about was Twitter. And now the only people who talk about Twitter are celebrities and news outlets, because that's a way that they can get comments back from people and use hashtags on a show and stuff. But the average person, Twitter is not a big thing anymore. It's just really not. When you see a small business wanting to do advertising, Twitter is usually the last place that you're going to go for something like that, because it's just so much noise. There's so many posts that you really just don't see anything back. So, I started Twitter. I got 6,000-7,000 followers, which was a lot for me back then, when I was just starting out. And then I started to get like zero traffic from Twitter on my website. And then all the rage was Facebook, and I built up Facebook, and it was massive. I mean, we could post and get, 10,000 likes on posts that we were doing all the time, daily. And then Facebook just started cutting the reach of your posts. And I will add, they're a company, they want you to pay for ads. So I thought, okay, well, I can pay a little bit to get my ads out. Well, it used to be $15, $20. Now, I'll go on there right now. I'll give you a real live number on this. This is not just a wild guess. If I wanted to boost my most recent post on Facebook, these are our followers. We have 700,000 that people that I've brought to Facebook. If I wanted to boost that post to get to, I can spend $3,000 in 3 days, and it will make it out to between 60,000 and 100,000 of those people. So I can reach 1/6 of the people that I brought to Facebook if I spend $3,000 on one post. It's madness, right?
That is madness.
It's crazy. So Facebook did this, then Pinterest. We built up a huge Pinterest following, and we used to just get floods of traffic from Pinterest. We still get quite a bit, but not nearly what it used to be. And so I guess my advice to Kevin Jordan is asking about this. Kathy Coleman's talking about it on Facebook Live as well. And I guess my point with this is it is going to happen. It's not just Facebook and it's not just Instagram. This will occur. And what I have found to work is just when you build up one network, be sure you're pushing them to your other networks as well. And then as that one dies out, you push them to the next thing. And it's ever changing. It's technology and it's social media. It's always going to be up and down and moving everywhere. But you just do what you can to keep pushing it. And what's the alternative? To just let your photos collect dust on your hard drive and never share them anymore, right? So you just, it is what it is, and we deal with it, and we try to get feedback on our photos however we can, but things are just constantly going to be evolving. All right. So we talked about making your photos stand out. We talked about shooting in portrait orientation. Next, what kind of trends are you seeing in photos right now? Of the big landscape photographers out there, what kind of trends are you seeing of, a style or things that people are shooting?
Well, like you've said, Jim, one of the biggest things that you can do is have some nice foreground, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it be a flower or a plant or something like that. And that's where that portrait orientation comes in handy, is because you can go in, you can have a nice flower with a beautiful mountain with some amazing clouds or something like that in the background. So I'd say mountains for sure, one of the top ones. That's where you're going to get some likes from. Wildlife, I posted some wildlife, and it kind of depends on what's in it. But for the most part, I don't get a big reaction from that. So for me, and actually, if you look at my photos too recently, I love to take barn photos and things like that. And I've done a barn calendar, and people love barns as well. You get some amazing clouds or something like that with it. Those are the trends. Finding good barn photos, old barns or whatever it is, mountains, clouds, the ocean, anything like that is what's really sticking out to people.
Yeah, another interesting thing that I have noticed is, you said that you posted wildlife and they didn't tend to get as many likes. I've noticed the same with portraits, actually. I've noticed that portrait photos generally don't have as many likes, and I think it's just because as you're flipping through, scrolling through your feed, you see you see all your friends and people and then this random model or this random couple getting married, and you just scroll right past it. I don't know those people. So I think, I think it's not so much that people don't like portraits. I think people definitely like portraits, just that you see all your friends and then this random person. And so I usually notice that portraits posted on Facebook or Instagram or really anywhere else just don't tend to do quite as well.
I completely agree with that. It's a shame, and I'm culpable of that as well. If I see a model, I'm just going to pass on through, and I'm not even going to double click. It's pretty simple to like a photo, but even I won't even take the time to do that. And people want to see landscape photos. That's what's going to stick out to people. But there are some people out there that do a great job with portrait photos. I don't know if you've heard of Adrian Murray. Mm-hmm. But he does amazing portrait photos of his children, and he gets a ton of likes. He's got 100,000 followers, and it kind of depends on what you're doing, and it's got to be interesting. Like if it's just a model, people aren't going to really like it. But if it's a cute picture of your kid with a dog or something like that has a rainbow or something like that, people are going to like it a lot more.
Oh yeah, kid, dog, and rainbow is like the trifecta. Like you got a kid, a dog, and a rainbow. Of course, it's worth a double tap, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it really depends on the subject matter for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Josh, it's been great talking with you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us on Tripod. I know you listen to the show as well, and I hope everybody will jump onto Instagram and check out Pactography and follow you to see some of the stuff you're doing, and also follow me at Improve Photography. Don't search me at Jim Harmer. There you're going to see photos of my kids and my barbecues and stuff. Improve Photography is where I'm posting all the interesting stuff. So thanks for meeting with me, Josh, and we'll talk with you later.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Jim.